Hi guys, it's Gracie with Small Worlds Big Adventures, and I am here with Scott, and we're going to be going over two more RPG horror stories. So let us know what you think below, and hit that like button if you think that we are on point. Otherwise, let's get into it.
Hi everyone, it's me Moira, and I am here to remind you that next week starts Spooktober and that my humans will be reviewing one board game a day for every day in October. They're giving away a board game each week, so tune in next Sunday, October 1st.
Story from RPG Horror Stories from the user DarkJester89, titled DM Charges Me $50 a Person. I am all for a party chipping in and helping pay for a book or tipping the DM, but good gosh, this wasn't even like a professional. It was a theater of the mind only, in person, with a stock book adventure, and this was his normal price for the whole shop. Some of the players came back and said that he was saying this was the only option to play D&D. When asking him more about this, the DM got defensive. It was clear this wasn't the first time this was brought up. If you are paying for a service, make sure you do a little Q&A to figure out what you are getting or should be getting for the price you're paying. Edit: this isn't saying all DMs who charge are a problem, just that this is an enclosed incident of the highest price I've ever seen charged for a very suboptimal, watered down experience.
Yeah, that's pretty high. I've looked into charging for Dungeons and Dragons games before. $50 per person is a high price, especially if you don't have any bells and whistles, unless the DM is really, really good. A lot of times I'll see prices ranging from 40 to 50 per group, per session. Sometimes you'll see it by person. That's usually runs somewhere between 10 and maybe 30 at the high end. But for that, I would be expecting, some customized terrain and some really interesting combat stuff, or something beyond just theater of the mind. Really good printouts, probably that I'm taking home, like handouts. That's $50 per person per session is high.
Well, and they don't say it's per session, but it's gotta be.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's not.
And then also, beyond that, to be told this is the only way you can play Dungeons and Dragons is a little ridiculous. You might be limited based on where you are, but there are lots of ways to find Dungeons and Dragons groups. Now, mind you, he's selling it, so of course he's gonna be like, nah, this is the only way.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little tricky because there's a lot more players than there are DMs out there, and sometimes it can be hard to find somebody to DM your group. That's more than I'd be willing to pay. We actually did we looked at it a couple of times. I'm not sure I really want to play for just kind of some random people for money, because then I feel like it puts a bit more pressure on me.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I have like a bad session, which sometimes you do, then what do you do? Do you give them a refund, or they just buyer beware? I'm just a little bit weird. We put together a prize package for a
charity auction
for a local charity that included a DM'd session, specially made character sheets and some other stuff in that, which did end up getting purchased, but They never cashed it in. So I'm in a lot of ways glad that didn't happen, I suppose. That had made me nervous, but I was willing to do it. But yeah, $50 per person I have to imagine it's per session.
Oh, for sure.
That's high, especially if you've got no extras for sitting around the table with that.
I mean, sometimes we run a free game. Mm-hmm. We feed our players. And then on top of that, I often feel guilty if we don't even get all the painting done and all that, because not that theater of the mind is awful, but having those miniatures and those terrain and stuff adds something to it.
Yeah, we like to have a good fleshed out table when we're doing battles. So we have a 3D printer, and we print out a lot of miniatures, and we try to get those painted ahead of time. And we like to have special terrain to put out if possible. I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah. But like you said, we don't even charge our players and they get all that. And one thing is, like, if you are interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons, there's lots of places you could look. One, I would probably just talk to your friends. One, you may not know that they've played before or DM'd before or anything like that, or they may know people who are wanting to start a game. And a lot of times it's a lot more comfortable to start with friends than it is strangers, especially if it's like your first game. But also you'll find social groups like on Facebook and meetups that are like local to your area, and you can like find groups that way. Your local game store is often a good place to start. They probably know people who are at least like very active in the community that could get you connected with. Sadly, this game store did not seem to have that, but
sometimes they have message boards there too that you can find either players or groups looking for players.
And then on top of that, like if you can't find a DM, maybe consider DMing yourself. It can be really scary, but you're mainly building a world and having people help you tell a story.
It can be a little scary, especially at first. It can be quite a lot of work, but it can also be very satisfying. And when a game goes well, you feel a really good sense of accomplishment. When a story comes off the way that you imagined it, it's hard to beat that feeling. One of the differences is, especially if you've got kind of a large amount of people at your table, if you're a player, especially in combat, a lot of times you take your turn and you're sitting there maybe half an hour before it comes around to your turn again. Or if you're role playing, maybe it's, if you're not in the spotlight, you're sitting there kind of, entertained, hopefully, but waiting for your turn to come up. When you're the DM, you are on pretty much the entire time you're playing. There's almost no stop for you. It is well worth doing. I get that it's scary to start, but a better time to try.
Sure. And if people can't pick it up, you prefer being a DM to being a player.
Yeah, I've been a forever DM for long enough now that I honestly prefer to DM than play. I do enjoy playing from time to time, but I much prefer to DM.
And you actually play virtually, which is another way that if people wanted to get involved, they could go online and find virtual games.
Yep, another way to find groups is online, and it's not my preferred way to play, but if it's your only option, it works.
And this one's from r/RPG Horror Stories. It's posted by user Puddington Bear, and it is titled "How to Crush a Kid's Dream." This one is not necessarily a horror story, but more of a sad tale. I went to pick up some paints for my minis at a local friendly game store. Some of the other patrons in the store included a couple and their son. I'd guess he was around 12 years of age. The mother was picking up some board games whilst her son and dad browsed the TTRPG section. The paint section is right next to the TTRPG section, so I saw and overheard the kid picking up a player's handbook for D&D. He seemed excited to get a copy. His dad apparently played D&D with a couple of his pals in the evening, and he wanted to join in on the hobby too. His dad, however, was not as happy. He started saying that the game didn't fit him as it was too complex, and he probably wouldn't understand all the English phrases. It is not the native language here. His mother walked over and chimed in as well, saying that the group of his dad was mature content that is unfit for his age, and that most D&D games are like that. To make things worse, they went to the counter to talk to the store owner. The store owner seemed to be caught between a rock and a hard place as these two parents started their spiel about how the game didn't fit their son. They were looking for an affirmation, not an opinion. The store owner seemed to be uncomfortable to have been dragged into this argument. I bet he was. So he basically said that the language in the book can be difficult for a kid. During the entire time, the boy was silent and looking at the floor, just nodding along. I've never seen the excitement drain so fast of someone's face as he went to put the book back. My heart broke for him. So yeah, this kid was essentially gate-kept out of the hobby by his own folks. It feels so weird to me to do that. I'd let I'd love it if my kids were into D&D. And with the game being so adaptable, you can just run a family-friendly one-shot with simple rules. Or is that more difficult than I'm currently imagining?
I know I've heard of stories of running it for kids as young as 7, 8.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have to make a lot of accommodations for that, and certainly given our experience for kids and sitting at the table for games, time-wise,
Mm-hmm.
can't let it go on too long before they kind of maybe start losing their interest in certain things. But yeah, that's you hate to hear that, especially when one of the parents already plays.
Mm-hmm.
The kid doesn't necessarily need to play with his dad's
Friends. Yeah. But if his dad's friends have kids, maybe they once a month do a little kid-friendly sesh.
Yep.
I think it kind of like goes back to like a 5, 6, 7-year-old may not be able to play any of these more complex board games, whether it's Scrabble or Dungeons and Dragons. But if you really want that childhood to share that hobby with you, there are ways to simplify it so that they slowly build the skills to one way be successful in whatever it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, and especially at its base, Dungeons and Dragons is just playing pretend with some rules. Like kids do that. Like I'm sure the kid already knows how to do the basics of this, of crafting a story and playing pretend. It's just now you've got some rules on top of that, and you roll some dice, and that's one of the reasons why it is adaptable to kids who are younger, even younger than that. I started playing when I was in 7th grade, and not long after that, my brother played. He's 4 years younger than me. And yeah, he struggled with some of it at the time. Like one of the things that it seemed to definitely help him out was with his math skills. Like, got a lot better after playing for a couple years, and there are lessons that you can have there if they play as like, for the example in the story, or just kind of in general. Like if you play as a family, you can teach your kids life lessons through these adventures.
1,000%, yeah.
Like if you're willing to spend the time to craft them and plot them out and stuff, you can teach them different things.
Absolutely. And it's definitely something when we're here too, that like D&D or any tabletop RPG, we tend to play Dungeons and Dragons. It can be such an exploration of your own identity.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of stories out there that like people played a queer character before they came out as queer themselves.
Yeah.
And so this can be a way for their kids to explore who they are deep down.
Right.
And then the concept of like, oh, it always has to be mature and things like that. I mean, there's even different systems now that are like cozy systems that are not like even battle based, if you will.
Yeah. Also, can you just imagine crushing a kid's excitement for a subject?
Me, literally never.
I mean, that's just rough.
Yeah. And one of the things, maybe the most legitimate, is like the language barrier thing, but kind of linking back to like the math skills with your brother, this could be a way to improve his English skills. I know with Desmond, our son, he hated reading until I got him comic books.
Yeah.
Once a kid has an interest in something, they're willing to like overcome those challenges so that they can do it.
Yep.
Also, that poor store owner or store worker.
Yeah, kind of caught.
Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, I'm sure he wanted to like stoke that fire, but the parents are the ones paying for whatever they had.
Yep.
Oh, but yeah, that little kid. I probably would have been a nosy Nelly and been like, here is a child-friendly like system, but that's an uncomfortable
Those are all the
situation.
stories we have for today. So if you enjoyed listening, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified next time we upload. If there's nothing else, we'll see you guys later.